Hey, Stace, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. What's going
Yes,
on?
nothing much. Tell you, I'm so happy you're here. And I'm so excited for our first interview on Pearl's Pride and Joy podcast.
Thank
I
you for
tell you,
having me.
thank you for saying yes. I'm just excited about this. And we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello,
Okay.
everyone, and welcome to Pearl's Pride and Joy podcast. I'm Stacey Brown, and this is Helena Erman. And we're going to be discussing how she went from broken to blessed and how she allowed God to order her steps. And she's just going to share her journey, her story. And we're just going to get into it because I'm excited about having her on here. And I'm excited about just learning how she allowed God to use her and to guide her while she was going through this journey. So, again, thank you, Helena, for joining. Can
Thank
you
you.
tell us a little about yourself and your journey?
Well, as any journey, it's not a straight line. That's for sure. Anything but. I would say more like a broken road. Um, I grew up in a family where faith was at the core of our family. I grew up in a Christian home. But as you know, just because you're Christian doesn't mean you're perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
So, um, much of my extended family was still Catholic. And my mom suffered a lot of criticism for being a born again Christian. And I think they thought she was nuts for a little while. But it's so funny because as the years went on, you could see the softening in different people in my family over that time. But as from an early age, I learned how to navigate the different perspectives while keeping the faith at the center of my life between the Catholicism, the born again Christian, and then of course you have the world and
Yeah,
influencing a young child and so forth. And life doesn't stop, and life is not always kind
yeah,
in those
that-
moments.
that's true. That is so true.
So,
Yeah. So, before we talk about where you're at today,
mhm.
what was life like during some of your most challenging seasons during while you were growing up and dealing with the Christianity and Catholic, being Catholic?
Mhm.
How did that affect, or how did that affect your challenges and the challenging seasons that you had during this time?
Well, it's funny because I remember as a kid, I got made fun of for being well, first we had moved to a small town in Delaware from Philadelphia. So that was the first thing. Second thing was being made fun of for being Italian and then throw being Christian on top of it because even in a little place like Smyrna where Methodist or Lutheran or whatever, still being a quote Christian meant that you were different. And I don't understand that now. Like looking back, I don't understand that, but at the time, that's what it was. The whole, now I look back, it's so funny because back then you think that you're being ridiculed for something you really don't understand,
Mhm.
especially as a child. And so as time went on, it did hang with me a little bit. The restrictions. You're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to do that. School dances are not for Christian girls. And now I think a little bit differently about that stuff, but it felt very restrictive. And as a parent now, you kind of understand why. Although I have to tell you, I wasn't that parent that didn't let my kid go to dances. Even though there were things I was not allowed to do. But I think the hardest thing being bullied, being picked on, but at the same time, you know what? When you look in comparison at what Christ went through, what we go through is nothing.
Yeah, nothing, nothing at all. And
Mhm.
you are so, and I think about while you were talking, I think about how I grew up in a church, a
Mhm.
Christian church. And
Mhm.
even with me growing up as a Christian, we got picked on.
Mhm.
We were
Oh,
told
yep.
we thought we were better than others because of where we lived. And the biggest thing that we got ridiculed about growing up was having a family where the father was present. Most of my friends that came from a single home.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that, having that family value and having that bond, and then also being a Christian, you get poked at. And
Mhm.
as a child, you kind of wish this and you wish that. But then as you got older, you realize, oh no, I was, thankful
Mhm.
now.
Mhm.
But back then as a child being poked at, and you know, it's I wouldn't say it's hard, but back then it was hard. It was hard growing up
Yes.
with that. And I
Mhm.
can imagine you being Italian, because I would say majority of Italians are Catholic,
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
but
Mhm.
like
Almost
90%,
all of them.
100%. So now
Exactly.
you're talking about Christianity. Oh no, oh
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. What do you mean you don't believe in a saint?
no. No. So, but that is, when you're getting that division, it makes a difference as you realize, as you're growing up, your values.
Mhm.
Not that your foundation wasn't there,
Right.
but now your values change on what your, I shouldn't say your values change. I'm sorry, wrong word. Your beliefs change.
Mhm.
Not that it was introduced to you through Catholic, being a Catholic, but
Mhm.
it shifted to what Jesus was about, and how he died for our sins, and how he, allowed us to have that connection with God. It
Yes.
kind of has us looking at different things.
Yes.
So I know there's some things in our life that broke us as we journeyed,
Mm.
and we had some struggles.
Mhm.
So, meeting people experience seasons of brokenness. What were some of your struggles or hardship that helped shape your life?
Um, looking back over the time, I just thought of something as you were talking, and I was thinking about how when I was growing up, the focus was on who I was gonna marry. I don't know why that was such a focus. It wasn't about a career or I worked a job from the time I was 12 years old out of necessity because our family just didn't we always had financial struggles. And, you and I talked about that before.
Yes.
My mom came to me and says, "Daddy and I can't afford you anymore, so you're gonna have to go get a job,"
God.
kind of thing. But that is also what created my work ethic, so I don't feel slighted in any
Mhm.
way. I kind of, that's created who I am in that part of it. The other like thinking about that time, every time like a boyfriend didn't work out or something like that, I thought it was rejection.
Yeah.
And you don't realize in those
No.
moments, that is God closing that door
Close the
and
door.
saying,
Yep.
"Mm-mm, this person is not for you. You are not being punished. You are not being crucified." It is the Lord's going, we're done
Nope.
here.
That's it.
Next, please," kind of thing. And I wish that I had had that insight. I did not. I
Yeah.
struggled a lot with um, self-esteem,
Yeah.
self-worth, understanding that my worth is going back to, I think, something I shared with you about what my daughter had said. I was never taught that my worth was just because I breathe. It was
Right.
always based on something else, something of the world. When you think about it, I could leave you the list of things that I was told,
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
whatever. And that's not the case. And I did not know that as a kid. Looking back, I wound up eh, being so uncertain, you know what I mean, with not knowing who I was
Mhm.
at my core. And yes, while I had that foundation growing up, the Christian foundation, I had a lot of cracks in my foundation. I had a lot of cracks in my foundation, and that's putting it
Mildly.
mildly, I think, yeah, yeah. I was really lucky because there was a lot of things that I held on to, but I didn't have, the Lord talks about us having a mustard seed of faith, and
Mhm.
I didn't have a
Yeah.
mustard seed of faith. I always thought I was being punished, and so, those were the hardest and most formative years of my life, and, uh, I was young and I got married. I just turned 20 years old. I was a baby, married a man I hardly knew who was Italian and Catholic. um, and then he was abusive from the moment I stepped into the marriage. Not even, we weren't even married yet the first time, which was really stupid that I got married anyway.
Anyway.
But the hardest thing I think was when my son was born and he passed away. And I was very angry with God for a long time over that. I look back and, those things that they have up on Facebook or whatever, and, think about a time that you almost died and thank God that you're still here,
Yes.
kind of thing. That was
Yes.
that moment. I had 105 fever when I was delivering him at 26 and a half weeks.
Oh.
And it was really, my blood pressure had dropped. They couldn't take him C-section. And I wasn't dilating. Like, it was this whole big Chinese fire drill, let's say. And he lived for just under 36 hours. And that was the most soul crushing, devastating thing. And I was a 22-year-old kid. Like, I remember laying there, and it was June. And I remember, I think the Miss America or the Miss United States pageant was on the television in the hospital room. And I kept trying to pray and, rebuking Satan and please save my son. And I had been down there earlier. Every time I was with him, he did really well. And when I left him, he would start to nosedive, shall we say. And then I remember that being on TV, and it was like 10:30 at night. And the doctor came and said, this isn't looking good. You need to come back downstairs. And when I got back downstairs, they were just bagging him. They were trying to keep him alive for me. And I just thought I was being punished for everything, that I ever did. If I breathed the wrong way, in that moment, I was being punished, for God taking him from me. And that was hard. That is probably, my kids would tell you I'm a hover mom. That's not a pain you ever want to relive again
No.
with
No.
any child. It was just, and between being thought that I was being punished by it all, I resented. Like, my ex-husband had to have statues in the house because, he believed in the Madonna, the Satan, whatever. And so we had these pictures of Jesus in our house, and I took everything down. I put it away. I'm like, when I was pregnant with G, I went away to Italy after Vincenzo's funeral. I went away to Italy for about 6.5 weeks, came back and went to the doctors, and he's like, okay, you can start. And within 2 weeks, I was back in there with a positive pregnancy test. And he goes, what did you do? Pull over? Like, so when I found out I was pregnant with her, every time I felt an ache or a pain or had any kind of fear, I was like, nope, 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 I'm not praying. I would start praying. My immediate response was to start praying because I was scared. But then I would like, wait a minute, nope, nope, I'm not asking you for anything, And it took me, even though I was grateful for each one of my children after Vincenzo, it took me about 16 years before I stopped being angry or stopped feeling like I was punished for that. For his death. And now I look at it as God's saving grace. He knew that marriage was not going to last. He knew that bringing a baby into that a premature baby, no less, a less than perfect baby, Michael, who is technically my third child, but my second live child, right? He was perfect. He was born 5.5 weeks early. He was 7'3". He was this big, fat little sumo wrestler of a baby. He was everything an Italian dad would want in a baby boy, and he resented him and didn't treat him. So what would he have done to a child that was less than perfect because of struggles from being born premature? He was not a present man in the marriage. We were not equally yoked in any way, even though I don't know that I was necessarily walking that particular path with the Lord at the time, but I can tell you, even if I had been completely unequally yoked, he did not, he believed in black magic, he didn't believe in faith. And I think
No.
that's important to kind of convey because of where our belief systems were. We didn't even have the same core beliefs. Do you know what I
Even
mean?
though he was Catholic, even though he was raised, and so it was
Religion.
more like a, how would I say, a tradition for him versus
Mhm.
a actual walk with God.
Yeah, never went to church. I mean, when I think about it, even when we went, so we got married in a Catholic church in Italy, and we had to go sign, the holy book and whatever beforehand, and you have to go and say confession and
Yes.
stuff like that. And I did all that. Like, even though I didn't grow up Catholic, there was a part of me, I'm going to say, that I felt a little bit slighted as a kid because all my cousins had their first Holy Communion. They got to look like the little bride. I never had that. My mom just we didn't do that, not in the church that we were part of. So when I married him, I had to complete my sacraments in order to marry him in Italy, which I did do. Of course, I was not dressed as anything. I went
Yes.
up there and did 3 sacraments in the one day. But I remember that night, specifically the night before we got married, and we had to go and do confession and everything. And he like did one of these and ducked out of the church. And that was it. I was like, "Oh, okay." So, but, yeah, not equally yoked at all, and I think now, looking back, um, I don't know that I had the wherewithal back then to know all that I know now, you know?
So
So
back when you, so what, I don't mean to cut you off.
no,
When
no,
you,
no, go ahead.
okay. So when I'm listening to your story and you're talking about how, you weren't equally yoked with your husband
Mhm,
and the loss of your child,
mhm.
where do you think God was at? Or where did you recognize God in that journey with you? I know it wasn't during that time of struggle and loss and everything, but at what point did you recognize God's hand in the midst of what you were going through?
When my one sister, she had had 3 babies consecutively die inside of her. She had the first 2, no problem. Her and her husband were trying for more. The first one, I think, 4 months, the second one was 5, and then the third one, she was just about 7 months,
Mhm.
and she went in for her appointment, and the baby's heartbeat, there was no heartbeat, and so that was December of 2008. In We had celebrated her daughter's birthday in February 5th, I think it was, of 2009, and on March 5th, I think it was the 5th, her husband was killed in a car accident,
Oh my
in a freak
gosh.
car accident. Yeah, and it wasn't until that, like, her and I had really kind of, all of us, I mean, we rallied around her, but even aside from that, like, it was in those moments, her and I would have these moments, like, at nighttime where I would call and I'd say, "How are you?" And she'd say, "I'm okay," and I said, "You sound like you've been crying." She said, "Well, I'm having some wine so I can go to sleep, but yes," and so it was just, she started to really open up and tell me about all the things that she was grateful for, which shocked me because you've had these series of traumatic things happen to you. The whole situation surrounding his death was just, it wasn't just that she lost her children. They even had a name picked for the baby, and the one that had passed in December. And he was building a business, they had a home, everything, and all of that went away when he died. Like, everything got wrapped up into the estate. She moved back home with her in-laws, and her in-laws helped her raise the kids and stuff, which was great, great family. But when you think about that kind of loss,
Yes.
and the way that she was opening up, all of a sudden, I began to see my own situation differently. I think now when I look back, God knew that her husband was not going to be here. So her every effort for a baby wasn't to punish her, it was
Hmm.
to save her from a path that she was going to have to walk basically alone.
Right.
And so that made me look at my own situation differently, being that God knew the kind of husband I was married to. He gave me three healthy children after the fact. No reason to be upset about that. Um, but he knew that he was not a present person, that we were not equally yoked. He knew how he would or would not have accepted the baby,
Hmm.
and any struggles that followed. Um, he was a very explosive person. So when you have a premature baby, you can't have any of
Yeah,
that.
that. No.
No. And so, like, when watching my sister go through all of that, all of a sudden I'm going, God taking Vincenzo from me was his grace in that moment.
Amen. Amen.
It was not to punish me, it was to save me and the baby
Hmm.
from something far worse.
Yes.
And I didn't see that at that time. I don't know if he had lived that I would have had any other children. And I would have been trapped in that marriage,
Yeah.
which was not of the Lord, which was abusive. It was pretty bad. But yeah, I want to say you live and you learn, but God's I feel like he's going, I gave you baby number one. Then I gave you baby
Yeah. Hmm.
Gianna, Michael, and then Sophia. And even Sophia, like, I will say that she was born early. All my children were born early. She had a heart condition. When she was first born, she aspirated fluid on her way out. So of course she had to go right to the NICU. And you want to talk about a God. And I had my gynecologist was he delivered all four children.
Hmm.
I had the same nurse for all four births, which is nearly impossible. Nobody
Yeah.
does that,
Yeah.
right? I did. I was so lucky. And I remember Chris, she stood in front of me when they took Sophia to the NICU. And I guess my face said it all. And she looked at me and she goes, "This is not the same situation. This is not Vincenzo. She's going to be fine. You'll see, they have to take her. She aspirated some fluid. This is normal." And now I look back and even then I thank God every day that she got pneumonia, because had she not, they
They
would not
want to
have found her
find it.
heart condition.
Yep.
And it was
Yep.
the fact that she was there that all of a sudden I'm holding her and I see the thing going up 239 beats a minute. And I'm like, something's wrong with her wires. And the nurse comes over. She goes, "Nothing's wrong with her wires, hon. You need to talk to the doctor." And I was like, oh, you know, but again, like, looking back in that moment, I was grateful. But the thing that I think we talk about God and him being ever so present, we don't always realize that he
Exactly.
is. And
Yeah.
he was present in that moment. He was present, in the fact that waiting patiently for me to go, "Okay, I get it now. Thank you."
Yeah.
That doesn't take the sting away any
Yeah.
less, or the what ifs he had lived and so forth. um, but I have peace about it, which I didn't have for a really long time. And it's a sin on one hand. That's a very Catholic saying too.
Yeah.
It's a sin to say that all those years it took me to watch my sister go through something so heartbreaking and just soul equally soul crushing, if not more, to have all these things happen to her and all at once, for me to realize, like, how patient was the Lord with me to wait 16 years. My son would have been 16 years old when all that went on. you know that's to me, that's a lot. So
But I think when we look back now, when we look back,
mhm,
I think about how God allowed things to take transform.
mhm,
And when you're talking about your sister and all the trauma she went through,
mhm.
and I think about and I'm not trying to compare your story with hers,
No, no, no.
but what I'm trying to compare is what Jesus went through. You know,
Mm,
he
mhm,
what he did, what happened to him, and not that the stories are the same, But when you were talking, I'm like, God, all that you put on us,
Mhm.
you say that you only gonna put on is what we can bear, and we think, oh, we can't bear this.
Mhm.
There's no way I can bear this, God. There's no
Right.
way. And then you said 16 years later, you saw your sister go through something more traumatic,
Mhm.
and you made a comment. She says, I'm sitting here thinking about, I'm about to get teary eyed. I'm sorry. How grateful I am. How
Mhm.
great.
She was.
And I'm like, and I can see, I can hear in your voice, and I can imagine during that time, how can you be grateful?
You know what was funny? It's polar it's a little bit opposite, and what I mean by that is the day so all of us worked for the same bank at one time. I was on
Mhm,
the brokerage side, my other 2 sisters were on the bank side. Maria no longer worked on the bank side at that point. She was a stay-at-home mom, taking care of the kids and, had, all the stuff, but our Kathy and I just happened to be working in the same building, and when we hadn't been. Before that, she had been, outside the city, and she came over to me with her face like this, and I thought she was laughing, and I said, "What's so funny?" And when she took her hands down, I could see she was crying, and I said, "What's the matter?" And that's when she said, "Matt was just killed in a car accident," and I looked at the girls in my office, and I looked at my boss, and I said,
I
let's
got
go. We're going. And I left and they didn't see me for like 10 days. But I remember walking into Maria's house and everybody, I mean, just everybody standing there devastated. And she came over and she hugged me and she goes, um, why does God hate me? And I said, God doesn't hate you,
you.
honey. I don't know why this happened, but God doesn't hate you. And in that, like, I want to say it was less than a month from that moment to I mean, his funeral, it's sin. And I don't mean to say this in a way that's negative. It seemed like that whole period of time from the time that he died
Mhm,
to the actual burial and everything was like a 10-day period, and it was every day. It just felt very heavy on all of us. I can't imagine what it was like for her,
mhm,
but it felt heavy on all of us. And so, it was less than a month later, we were having that conversation, and I called to say, "Hey, how you doing? What's going on?" When I just wanted to see how she was. I mean, here was nighttime, kids are in bed. Who's there to console her?
mhm.
She's in the house by herself at this point. And that's when she said, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the time that we had. And she said, I loved everything about him from the way that he dressed and this and that. I mean, she had her moments of going over in her head, what if this had been different or what if that had been different? But even that she did with grace, not anger, but with grace. Even in the moments like she doubted herself,
Mhm,
having gone through what she went through, the one thing that she said to me was, you don't feel like yourself in your own skin. You don't
mhm,
understand why your body did what it did, why your children are not here, and she said that was very a thing for her that was a little hard to get past initially. And then once she did, like, that was the part that she was talking about, that she was grateful for that window. Like, she just let it go, and I can't say that she really let it go, but I understood what she was saying to me, if
mhm.
that makes sense.
Well, no, it does, because she had to surrender that. She had to surrender that pain. She had to let that go so that God could heal her. And if
Mhm.
she would have held on to it, I don't know. And like we can tell any kind of speculations, but
Right.
sometimes if we don't let go and allow God to heal us the way that He needs to heal us,
Mhm.
then something else that happened, it could have went a different direction.
Yes.
But
Yes.
God was like, and I think about things that we go through in life, and we have those why questions. God,
Yes.
why? God, why?
Mhm.
Why are you allowing this to happen? What did I do? It's always about us.
Right.
But we
Mhm.
don't realize is God preparing us, because as you were talking, I don't, so I remember when my mom was sick, and both of my parents were in the hospital at the same time. And one of the bishops that we had joined with, she called me to check on me, just like you called your sister.
Mhm.
And she said something to me that I thought was profound. But after we hung up the phone, God kind of helped me understand what she was saying.
Mhm.
She said, this isn't for, well, how does she put it? Something like, this isn't for them, it's for you.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, what do you mean? I don't understand.
Mhm.
And when I heard it, I'm like, no. I mean, and what she was trying to explain to me is this is going to be something that I'm going to be able to share and pour into somebody else.
Mhm.
And I believe what your sister went through was not for her, it was for you because of what you
Mm.
went through,
Yeah.
you know. And even though she went through things, but sometimes I started looking at things differently after she said that, recognizing God. And even in my painful situation, I had a sermon, talking about the 5 loaves of bread and the 2 fish. And
Mhm.
sometimes we look at that and say, that's not enough. We don't have enough.
Mhm.
But God is enough.
Right.
Even in our problems and everything, God is enough.
Mhm.
You know, even though you were going through and she was going through, but I still keep going back to when she kept saying how grateful she was.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
just, and I'm getting chills because I'm
And
like,
you wouldn't think that somebody would say
no,
something like that going through what she was going through
yes,
at that time. There was so much upheaval in her life, and that day when I walked in and she said that, she goes, "I don't know what I did to deserve this." And now that I look back, it was about her, but it wasn't about her. And I don't mean that, and for me, I'm talking about,
yes,
like, I I heard it once said, and I don't know if this is true or not. The day we come into this world is written in stone, and it is when we go out too.
okay,
Like, the Lord knows that day, and He knew Matt's number, right?
yes,
He knew that was the day. Um, and all that happened up to that point, I could never say to her, "Well, you're lucky you don't have, 2 more kids," or, you know what I mean?
yes.
You would
Mhm.
never say so.
Don't
I
say
would
that. No.
never in a million years. But in the moments that she was grateful afterwards, I'm thinking, what I remember specifically thinking, she's grateful when her world has just fallen apart.
Hmm.
She doesn't know the Lord the way that I do because we are half siblings and they were brought up Catholic. Their mother, very sweet, love her very much. She is a faith person, but I don't know that she knows the things that we know. So
Right.
to say that my siblings were brought up the same way that I was, I can't
No.
answer that honestly.
Honestly.
So for her to say that made me like, okay, check yourself.
Right.
Check everything you've been through. Look how far you've come. Look at all the things
Yep.
that have happened and check yourself. She's grateful for the time. She's grateful for the snow day that they had. She's grateful for the moments that she had. And here
Yep.
I am still hanging on to the anger. And
Yep.
what hit me in that moment is, and this was the part that I really would choke me up every single time. My sister never got to hold her children. My sister never got to see her
Yeah.
children.
Children. Yep.
Because when that happens, there are things that happen, and the nurses and the doctors go, you don't want to be awake for this,
Right.
basically. And so she didn't have that moment. I got to see my son. I got to hold my son.
Yep.
I when I walked up to him and I said, "Hi, mommy," he looked right at me,
Hmm.
and all the things. I never looked at it until that moment, but all the things, they were like, he's not going to be more than 10 ounces to a pound. He was well over 2 pounds. They said he wouldn't be more than 10 inches long. He was almost 15 inches long. Like, he was going to be a big baby. There was no way about that. No two ways about that. I ate plenty of donuts. Um, they said that he wouldn't be able to open his eyes. And he
He
had
did.
big brown eyes. He opened up, he had black curly hair. I mean, he was the most precious thing that I had ever laid my eyes on. And I think about the comparison. all the things that she could have questioned, why? And here she was grateful. And I had the opportunities that she
Yeah.
did not. And when that hit me, I almost, I didn't almost, I did feel ashamed that I didn't see that earlier.
Yeah.
But God is God. And,
Yes.
you know, I think between his patience and his like,
Yep.
okay, now she gets it, kind of thing. Um, that was huge. I know it doesn't sound like it, but it was huge in my healing where that was
Yes.
concerned.
Yeah. I
I
can see
was
that. Yeah.
After that point, I think I just started to see different
Hmm.
things in a different light
Right. Yeah.
after that. This,
Exactly.
as I've gotten older, that isn't rejection. It's just God going, this isn't for you,
Yeah.
you know? Um, and that was not, you want what you want when you want it,
Yep.
and that's the way I
Exactly. Yep.
kind of, the Lord's not, he sees, I go before you. That's
Yes.
what is said in the Bible.
Yes.
I go before you, so I have to trust. I didn't trust back
Yes.
then.
No.
I didn't trust anything, to be honest with you. After that happened, that was like the San Andreas fault
Yeah.
foundation. You know what I mean?
That
that
was
was
it.
just that just broke open the cracks, like,
So now, once you've gone through that, how do you
Mhm.
feel your relationship with God, from then to now has changed? How has that relationship with God how has it changed?
Well, even in the initial with watching everything with my sister, that was just the beginning. That was and I was nowhere close to where, I started to go. So, that was 2009. Dave and I wound up reconnecting in 2010, and I knew I did not want to. So I was supposed to meet him for lunch.
Mhm,
And it was, I guess it was a Sunday afternoon because we spent all day on Saturday in New York. We had gone to New York for my cousin's 40th birthday. And I was exhausted and not feeling good in my skin.
mhm,
Um, and I just remember crying and telling my mom, like, I don't want to go. I'm not ready for this. I'm not up for this. And she's like, "You need a breather. You need to put on
mhm.
something cute, feel good about yourself, and
And
I'm gonna
then
take the girls and go to the diner, come up and see us afterwards." And there were, like, little things. Michael had to be picked up from football practice and stuff like that, and, ironically enough, everybody rallied. Like, my mom took care of the girls. My brother Billy's like, "No sweat, I'll get Mike from football
mhm.
practice." And I was like, "Okay, good." So, I went up to the diner, saw my mom, and she's like, "Nice outfit," you know? And so I went and I, met him at the King of Prussia Mall. We were meeting, at the Cheesecake Factory, of all places, and I knew before I even hit the mall parking lot. I remember, if you know anything about King of Prussia and the underground garage, like, you have to go down and around to get
Mhm.
to the Cheesecake Factory. And as I was driving around, I was going around this bend and I just felt the Lord's peace. And I knew before I even saw him. And I don't know why or how. And maybe that's what I was afraid of. Maybe that's why I didn't want to, I wasn't ready to give up. I was alone for 9 years before he came into the picture. So it was really funny because I remember just feeling that peace. And then he had been married twice before. So my now sister-in-law, said to me, "Don't be surprised if he's gun shy. He's not going to want to get married again. That's not for him, this, that, and the other thing." It's like, all right, whatever. Like, I'm just going and having lunch. Nobody said we're getting married. Well, by the, so we,
Next day, we're going to the altar
yeah,
again.
right. So what happened what was so funny about the whole thing is, when I never put anybody in front of my children. Like, if I went on a date, it
Mhm,
was not one of those things where, "Come meet my kids,"
mhm,
not at all. But I didn't hesitate with him. So we wound up closing the restaurant, literally closing the restaurant. And Sophia had called, Mom, I need sweatpants for gym tomorrow. So I said to him, I have to run over to Walmart. Do you feel like taking a ride with me? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So he comes with me. I buy Sophia sweatpants, and it's like 11 o'clock. And I drive him to his car, and we both have Toyotas. They both have Toyota Corollas, no less, at this point, which was really funny because that couldn't have been planned any better. Um, but as I drove before I drove away from him, I said, "Do you want to come to the house on Wednesday night and meet the kids?" I said, "I'll just get a pizza because I'll be coming from work." And he's like, "Yeah, sure."
Mhm.
So it was so funny because I just remember when I pulled away from him, I called my girlfriend Rosie and I said, "Rosie, I'm going to marry him." And
There
she
you
said, "How
go.
do you know that already?" I said, "I don't know. I'm just telling you that I'm going to marry him." Well, he made me laugh so hard the whole day that my ribs hurt like I had done 1,000 crunches or something, just from laughing hysterically. But he said that he got in his car and he says, "I'm going to marry her."
There you
And
go.
within, I wasn't even a month, that was September 19th. And by October, I'd gotten this text message, and the text message, I actually have it on my Facebook page, was his proposal. And basically, not a formal proposal, but it was something to the extent that the Lord knew us
Mhm.
before the foundations of the earth were built. And he knew that we were going to, you know, he formed our, because we've known each other since we were 9 years old. And even though he went his way and I went my way, here we were back together again.
Yep.
Speaking of broken roads, right? and and so it was really, I didn't question it.
Yeah.
I just didn't question it because I just had peace.
Right.
And everybody was, no one but I will say my one daughter gave me a hard time, but no one else really did. Everybody was like, this is God ordained. Like,
Yeah.
so we were engaged, and then we had a surprise wedding on New Year's Eve. So from September 19th to December 31st, that, yeah, I can't even talk. 31st. And it was a surprise. Like, we hijacked an engagement party and made it our wedding.
There you go.
So
Look at that. Look at God. I tell you,
mhm.
look at God. And that's funny because my husband and I, our anniversary is December 29th.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's so funny. That's
That
so
is
funny. Did you
so
guys do a surprise too?
no, no, it was well, it was in the wintertime, but the winter in Florida is totally different.
Oh yeah.
And I picked that day because my sister was in, if I'm not mistaken, that was when she was in Japan. And they had a short window when and she was in my wedding.
Okay.
And the kids were and her kids were in my wedding and my kids and everything. And
Mhm.
so I'm like, I gotta find a time where she can still be here with the kids and just have the wedding and everything. So
Mhm.
December 29th is when we planned it and everything.
Wow.
So that is just that's ironic.
Isn't it? Isn't it?
So
And it
we're
was,
both just letting the audience know we are kindred spirits and
yes.
kindred sisters because
Yes,
we're
we
from the
are.
same state.
Yes. Yes.
So
Philly
it was
girls.
just so funny how, and now we have our anniversaries in the same, well, not in the same month.
2
Because
days
you said,
apart.
no, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 3 days apart. Yeah, New
3,
Year's
yeah.
Eve.
Yep.
Yep. So
Yeah.
that is just, that's, look at God. Look at God. There was a
Mhm.
reason why.
Yes.
A
Yeah.
reason why we met.
Yep.
So I know I had a lot of questions for you, but we've been talking and you kind of went through all the questions. But one of the biggest questions for me is, I look at reflections and I look at some of the things that I've gone through.
Mhm.
And if I would go back to my younger self,
Mhm.
so you go back to your younger self.
Run, run, and when you see
What?
the ocean, keep on running. No, and no, and
Oh
no.
no. So that's the advice you would give your younger self.
Oh, yes. Yes. Enjoy. It's so funny because I tell my kids this, and I don't know if we've ever talked about this. Maybe we did. The one thing that I said to my kids, and I remember exactly where we were living. G must have been maybe a freshman in high school, or maybe she was in 8th grade. And I said, know who you are at your core before you get married. And we were not big on the big birds and bees talk. That didn't come till later. But even then, I said to them, I remember specifically, that carries a lot of emotional responsibility with it. I was married to daddy, and I still had no idea of the emotional responsibility
Mhm.
that it carried. Um, and if you don't know who you are in your at your core,
Yep.
and if you don't have the same core values, you will get lost in all of that.
Yep.
And I did. Women lose themselves in marriage and motherhood and jobs, and they
Yep.
forget who they are at their core. And you wind up giving up so much of yourself that, and I remember going through this specifically when we separated. Who am I really? Yes, I'm their mother. That was a defining thing for
Mhm.
me. But who was I? What was I willing to tolerate? What wasn't I willing to tolerate? And that's another thing. Why do you have to tolerate anything at all? Right? If you have to, quote, tolerate something, you're
Something,
not in
yes.
the right relationship, because that's not compromise. That's giving up.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so,
Exactly.
um, I just I remember saying that to them. That would have been something to tell my younger self.
Mhm.
Make sure you have the same core values. Make sure that you know who you are at your core, and don't get lost in all of the outside minutia. It's easy to do.
Yeah. Yep.
It's easy for worldly, and I don't mean this as a criticism, but it's easy for people who don't know the Lord in the same way that we
Exactly.
do. So,
Exactly.
it's no different for us. It's just a part of life, you know? And I feel like, that would be key. Those
Yeah.
those 2 things right there would be key.
Yeah. And I like what you're saying because I remember when, as a single parent, and I remember one of my girlfriends told me, because everything was my kids, we
Mhm.
got to raise them, we got to make sure, we got to do this, we got to do
Yep.
that, soccer practice, cheerleading practice, baseball practice, you name it, they were in it, but I made sure my focus was on them.
Mhm.
And I remember her telling me, she said, if you don't make time for yourself, that self care, she
Mhm.
said, you're going to start regretting your children. And I'm like, I'm never
Mm.
going to forget my kids. I'm never. But I, at when she first said it, I didn't understand what she was saying. And I
Mhm.
thank God for the Holy Spirit. And I thank God for, how somebody says something to you, you start thinking about what they're saying. And it kept
Mhm.
coming back to me. And I'm like, now I understand what she was saying. She wasn't
Mhm.
saying I wouldn't love my kids, but
Right.
my life was so focused on that I
Mhm.
lost who I
Mm.
was because I
Mhm.
was taking care of my children.
Right.
And that was my main focus. And
Mm.
when you brought that out, you have to love yourself, because there was parts of my life, and I remember when I moved down here, I didn't think I was attractive. I was a single woman, I had 2 kids. Who would want someone like me? So I didn't even carry myself
Mhm.
as a woman. I just dressed anyway. I wore jeans, big old t-shirts, and a
Mm.
baseball cap all
Oh,
the
all
time.
day long, girlfriend, except I had on the
Oh,
stretch pants, the stretch pants with the big white T-shirts with the padded shoulders. Yeah.
yeah, that's it. That was me. And so my girlfriend said, you need to stop. You're beautiful. But I didn't see myself as being beautiful,
Yeah.
because I was looking at my situation and what I was going through as what they saw. I didn't
Mhm.
see who I was inside. So that's just ironic that you say that, because that's true. We lose ourselves when we
Mhm.
are, it's like we have to take care of, God has made us the provider, and now we have to take care of our kids and make sure they're okay. So we end up losing ourselves. And if you
Right.
don't know who you are, regardless of if you have children or not, if you don't know who
Mhm.
you are, you can get caught up in being who everybody expects you to be versus who
Right.
God wants you to be.
That I will tell you, that was I was very lost in that, just well before my marriage to my first husband, and then even navigating after through the divorce and everything else. I was always what somebody else I felt like I had to live up to someone else's expectation of me, and not the Lord's expectation. I didn't know
Yep.
what the Lord expected of me. I didn't ask. If I'm being quite honest, I didn't ask. And I would say that even I might have gone through not most people would call it a rebellious stage, but I did to some degree.
Mhm.
In the beginning, I was very, I wouldn't say disillusioned, angry, resentful, because now I was having to deal with not only the remnants of the past, but also the fact the you don't think that abuse stays with you. It
Yep.
does your whole life. I mean,
Yep.
once it happens, you can be healed, but
It's still going to be there.
yes, yeah, you can't change it. No
Yep.
one can take that away or give your innocence back to you, so to
Mhm.
speak. And so with my children, um, there were times where I felt exactly what your girlfriend had said to you. That is
Mhm.
exactly the way I felt. I was like, I'm too young for this, because here I was 30 years old, and I picked up and walked away from a 12-year marriage, and was just done. I knew I was done long before he
Mhm.
knew I was done. And there are times where in the past where I have gone to my daughter and cried and said, was I selfish to leave? Did I not give him enough of a chance? And she goes, Mom, are you nuts? Like, she said, you did the right thing to leave. I don't know why you think that, but I don't think that that's um, abnormal for
Mhm.
you to question, because I didn't see, if I'm being completely transparent, did I pray back then? I prayed all the time before Vincenzo,
Mhm.
right, passed away. I don't know that I prayed after that. I don't remember that. I don't remember that the Lord being very present
Mhm.
until after I had Mike and I started going to counseling with my old pastor. And there were certain things, like I was making my way back, and I asked him to go. And his response was, I'm not effing nuts, you are. Like, he wasn't going to go. And I was like, okay, well, I
Okay.
have my answer
Okay.
there. Right. And
Okay.
so what did I do? I went and had another baby.
Mhm.
Like I didn't help myself, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So I'm not sorry that I have my children at all. But there was a period going back to when we separated, I was angry and resentful. Here I am, have to take the responsibility of all three. Do you have to get
No,
that?
I'm just going to. I should have had my phone on mute and I didn't. So, but that's okay. Keep going.
Yeah, so what I was gonna say is I don't remember praying. I remember after Michael going through counseling and stuff, and they said to me, there's nowhere in the Bible that says that you should tolerate abuse. This is
Exactly.
this, and he asked me, the pastor, they opened up their home to me if I wanted to come and stay. At one point, I actually went and stayed with Dave's brother and his wife, my now in-laws, of course. And Dave was nowhere in the picture. I just called her up and she said, is everything okay? And I said, no. And she said, come down here. So I packed up the kids and I went, and I left for 10 days. And they begged me not to go back. And I felt like I had to give him another chance because I had a 6-month-old and a 2-year-old. And I should have stayed away back then, but we all make our mistakes.
Hindsight is always hindsight, but I don't I don't think it was a I don't look at it as regrets, because I think
Mhm,
about my two kids and their father and
mhm,
how he wasn't present. And then I
right.
had another child, so here it is,
Mhm,
same father, two kids, still not present.
right.
And you don't, you don't think about it. You know that what he was doing was wrong. You know the things he were doing. You see
Mhm,
the things he was doing and
mhm,
still went back you
mhm,
know. And I know my rationale was, my parents being raised with a mother and a father, and that's what I wanted for my kids. And I'm
mhm.
going to keep this family together no matter what, and
Oh,
so
yeah,
on and
fix
so
it.
forth,
Mhm.
everything. And
Yep.
then God was like, no,
Yeah. It's
no,
the fixer situation, right?
yeah,
And I
mhm,
think that women innately are like that because we're
yes,
caretakers, right?
yes,
We always think that we can fix things. Do I think that growing up as a Christian, that I thought that part of that was my role. Maybe, maybe I thought he would change. I mean, we moved, we did. I thought, okay, now we moved outside the city. Now he's away from everybody. It didn't change.
Strange. No.
His behavior didn't change. I just remember the one time he walked in the door and the kids were sitting on the sofa. They were bathed and everything. They're sitting there. Dinner was ready. And Sophia had this little like Minnie Mouse, looked like a little motorcycle thing. And he kicked it across the room and it crashed into a glass table, missing Michael's head by inches. And I looked at him and I said, I am done.
Yeah.
I want a divorce. And then they go through that thing where they're good for a little bit and they go right back to their behavior. Yeah. That was, it took me the last time that he did something like that. Michael was 5 and I looked at, I mean, he went after Michael and I had to hit him to get him off of a 5-year-old. That should not happen for any reason. And so I remember looking at Michael. I took him upstairs. I cleaned him up. I hugged him and I kissed him. And I said, we're going to go on a journey. I said, we're going to go on a journey. And I started from that moment. June, I was out by August 21st.
Yeah. It was time.
So yeah, that was it. That was it. That was my, you know, that song by Martina McBride, Independence Day.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was your Independence Day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was your Independence Day.
So there are moments that I look back and think, should I have given him another chance? But when you really go over everything, he had plenty of chances. He had 12 years of chances. Yeah. So, and if the Lord had wanted me to stay, there would have been redemption there for him.
But it wasn't.
No.
So before we close, is there anything that you want to share with your listeners or anything before we go into prayer and into our little discussion that I absolutely loved?
Well, I don't think this went any way we thought it was going to go.
I know. I had all these questions lined up. Yes, and we're going to talk about this and we're going to talk about that. Totally. But that's what God does. You know, that's what God does. I just love it.
Yes. I would say, look, if you have a moment of reflection, look back at where God's grace or direction was. You know, my mom coming to me and me having to go to work, you know, from a young child actually gave me my work ethic today. I learned a lot of hands-on, you know, things. I didn't have the luxury that other people had, and I'm okay with that. That's what makes me me. And what's that? The Bible verse? I don't remember the verse. It's about the Lord qualifies the called.
Yes.
Am I saying that right?
Hold on a second. Yes.
He doesn't call the qualified.
Right. He qualifies the called.
Yes. So that's been my journny, really, when you think about it. You have that part of it. And then like, look at how he's used the most difficult circumstances to teach us lessons where we haven't fully appreciated things. You know, that's so important. And I think so often gets dismissed because we get wrapped up in our own frustration, anger, depression, self-pity, you know, all of that. I will say this. I just have to, for whatever reason, this just came to mind. I remember 3 psychiatrists coming into the room after Vincenzo died. And they're like, do you feel like do you want to kill yourself? And that's not funny, but like they were worried about me being suicidal. And I'm like, no, I want to throat punch somebody, but I don't want to kill myself, you know, like for whatever reason, you know, I was angry, but that wasn't what I was thinking, you know, and I didn't see his grace in those moments. However, and I don't know if I told you this, my cousin, 9 years after I had Vincenzo, she had twins, and her daughter's named the same name as my daughter, and her son was named the same name as my brother, as my son was named the same as her brother, father, and grandfather. He passed away. Her little boy passed away. And so we have that in common. Well, here's where it gets even freakier, is that her niece, my cousin's daughter had twins, and the little girl was born asleep. And I text her. I just thought, she hasn't put anything up on Facebook. I've been following her pregnancy, beautiful girl. And you know what? She said, she told me the story, they had to take the babies premature, but because the little girl had passed in her womb, um, they had to take the little
The boy.
boy. Yeah. So, and she said, we're trying to find, what did she said? We are finding grace and joy in the midst of grief. What emotional
Mhm.
intelligence and
Yeah.
strength that is, that at 22 I didn't have that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I had no idea. And I will say, even my cousin, who, when she went through what she went through, it devastated her
Stated her.
marriage. Her marriage fell apart after that. Here's this kid that we both saw from a little girl become an
Mhm.
adult. And what does she say? The most profound thing that could
Yep.
come from anybody.
Yep.
I'm getting goosebumps telling you
Yeah.
this.
I'm telling no, but that's what God does. And that's what I just love God so much, because he can, even in the midst of pain, there's ways where he brings peace with it,
Mhm,
and you look at it, and you can look at somebody else's situation and say, how are you dealing with that? How is that possible?
mhm,
But that's what God does. He
mhm,
just gives us that answer, and you look at her, you, like you were saying, you're looking at her, she's young, and we're trying to find grace with this. We're trying to
mhm,
find peace with this.
mhm. And
Yeah.
she just is amazing. I mean, when
Yeah.
she said that to me, I just was dumbfounded, and reflecting on my own behavior, thinking about how I reacted to
Yeah.
everything. I don't know that I necessarily felt sorry for myself. I just could not believe that this would happen to
Happened.
somebody like me. It's not supposed to happen to Christians, and it does. It happens to everybody,
Yeah.
you know? And does it always serve a purpose? I'd like to think that God has a reason for the things that he
Mhm.
does, even if we don't see it in the midst of it
Exactly.
going on, but that we see his grace and we
Oh,
see his mercy
yes.
as we walk through it. In my case, I don't know if I'm the norm. I don't know. I often have said to people that have had somebody else go through it, use me.
Yeah.
Use me so that I can help them.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
think that the most profound thing and the most healing thing was when my dad was sick, had passed away. My daughter got married 2 weeks before he passed away. And on his birthday, she moved here to South Carolina. And after she had gotten pregnant with Grayson, she said, Mom, are you coming down? Of course I'm coming down. So I was here for 3 weeks around the time of his birth. And then she calls me, Can you come back for 6 months? You're not working. Can you come back for 6 months and take care of him? So I have to put him in daycare. I looked at Dave and he's like, Whatever you need for the baby, you do it. So I did that. And it was the most healing experience. That's where things really started to
Mhm.
turn around. The beginning of it was with my sister, right? So now you're looking 2009 to 2000. When was Grayson born? 16.
There you go.
2016. That was a 7 year. What do they say about seven? The
There you go.
7 year journey in order
Yeah.
to bring me back to something. And it brought me back to my childhood and the different healing things that happened within my own family that I didn't even recognize as a child.
Mhm. But that's what God does. I tell you. Oh,
Mhm.
Helena, this was awesome.
Yes.
I always enjoy talking to you. We spend so
Same.
many hours
The last
talking
time
to
we
one
talked on
another.
the phone, I think it was
No,
for 2 hours.
no, but I want to thank you. I really do want to thank you for just taking the time out and joining me on my podcast and
Thank you
just
for
sharing.
having me.
I really, really appreciate that. And all those that joined in, and I thank you for that. And I appreciate you joining in. And I just want to close out in prayer. And this is not going to be the last time me and Helena talk, because
Probably not.
we always, we're always, we may not talk all the time, but when we do, we're like long lost sisters, that
Sisters, yes. Uh-huh.
definitely long lost sisters. So let us pray. Oh God, I thank you. I thank you for allowing us to come together, God, and just share our journey, Father. And See how you have just brought us from we were broken to blessed. Our journey, God, our obedience, redemption, God, and how you're ordering our steps, God. But most importantly, Father, how you have healed us, God, so that that healing is our testimony for those that go through similar situations. So continue using us, Father. Continue allowing us to be the vessel that can be used by you, God, to help those that are going through struggling. They're going through situations. They don't see the light. They don't have hope. They don't have peace, God. But you are using us, God, to be the vessel, Father, to give that encouragement, to allow them that there is peace in you. There is hope in you. There is light, no matter what we're going through. I know the world says there's light at the end of the tunnel, God, but with you, there is light. So allow us to continue on the journey you placed us on, walking in our purpose, God. Continue aligning us in your word and using us, God, as we continue to encounter those souls that are lost. We ask all this. And God, I want you to continue. I don't want to leave out my friend, my sister, Helena. Continue using her, God. God, I just see you working in her. And I just am so thankful for our coming together and being friends just by one meeting, God, or just by one encounter, God. I know it was you that brought us together, Father. So I thank you for that. I thank you for our journey that you've placed us on together, God. And I know, Father, that you have more work for us to do. And I thank you for those that joined in, God, allowing them to hear her journey and just understand that God is still in control. God, you are still in control of our lives, despite what we may be going through. So I thank you. I praise you. I give you all honor and glory. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all. Thank you, Helena. I appreciate
Thank
you
you, Stacey.
just coming on here and just
Thank
wanting
you.
to be here and taking the time out to spend some time with me.
Oh, I love it. I love
Yes.
it. It's
So you
always
have,
good.
yes. We always have a good time.
Yes.
So thank you, thank you, thank you those for joining in and just spending time with us. And catch me again on next Tuesday, 7 o'clock, Pearls, Pride, and Joy. Have a blessed night. Goodbye.
Bye.